and joining the side chat that we're having today. It's called Beyond the Obvious, and we will be understanding what it is like to live with a chronic and neurological condition. My name is Gayatri, and I will be speaking to Manju Sharma, who is the subject matter expert and who has been kind enough to agree to share her journey with us today. This fireside chat is brought to you by the organization that we both work for, Enable India. Enable India, just to give you all a context for those of you who may not be familiar, is an organization in the disability livelihood space started in 1999 by Shanti Raghavan and Deepesh Sataria. We are headquartered in Bangalore and we work towards the livelihoods for persons across 19 different disabilities. So that in a snapshot is who we are. On that note, I would like to welcome you all once again for the fireside chat today. And it's interesting that we're actually doing this chat today on May 12th, which I learned as this morning is marked as the International Awareness Day for Chronic Immunological and Neurological Diseases. This is a day that is observed all across the world. So it's a very apt occasion for us to be having this conversation. For this fireside chat, I just want to call out some of the inclusion measures that we are taking so that everybody can be included in today's session. So for the hearing impaired, we do have 2 sign language interpreters. There are 2 and they will be spotlighted every 15 minutes in turns. Manju and I will also make the effort to speak at a slow pace so that the sign language can keep pace. We also have the captioning on Zoom for those of you who would like to look at that. And wherever necessary or relevant, we will provide any visual descriptions if necessary. So with those inclusion measures in mind, shall we get started?
Oh, yes.
All right. So the theme for today's fireside chat, as you all know, is Beyond the Obvious, because we're going to be looking at what is known as an invisible or a non-apparent disability. And we're going to be just scratching the surface on that a little bit and educating ourselves on that. And when you take the term chronic and neurological conditions, for the rest of the chat, I will be saying C and C just because it's easier, and the sign can maybe accompany that too. So CNC, as per the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, is a very broad umbrella term. It covers over 22 conditions such as brain injury, learning and attentional disorders, Parkinson's disease, and much more. So it's a very, very wide spectrum, which we will get to know more about today. And to shed some light on this subject, we have with us a Purple Ambassador, Manju Sharma. So the Purple Ambassador is a concept that came up in the Purple Fest, which is India's first of its kind inclusive festival that embraced and celebrated persons with a disability. The fest was held earlier in Goa this year, and the Goa government actually recognized 21 Purple Ambassadors, 1 per disability, who have and will continue to play a very big role for their community. And Manju was chosen as the Purple Ambassador for the CNC community. So that's the reason why we are addressing her as a Purple Ambassador. Just to give you all a very quick brief about Manju. So Manju has been associated with Enable India for 5 years. She has managed trainings of a partner organization, Tata Steel Foundation, at their flagship program on disability called Sabal in the tribal hinterland of Nauhundi in Jharkhand. Manju grew up in Kolkata. She has had a successful career with a leading international airline for over a decade. And this was until an incident led her to discover a new purpose in life, which we will know more about very shortly. Manju has completed a course on leadership for social change at Kandhari International in 2017. And since then, she has been in the development space. Manju's experience of growing up with a deaf sister has kept her engaged in disability-related issues for many years. She is very passionate about many things, such as social inclusion, gender equity, mental health, and minimizing waste. And in her leisure time, she enjoys DIY activities, gastronomical delights, nature gazing, and reading up on various topics. Thank you so much for being here today, Manju. It's a pleasure to get this time with you and to speak with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gayatri. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity, that I got today, and that too on a day which is so relevant to what I and many people across the globe have. So thank you.
Manju, to really kickstart the fireside chat today, my first question to you is really about your life journey. If you could, in brief, tell us about how you acquired the CNC, that would maybe help set context for the rest of the conversation.
Right. So this incident happened around 12 years ago. I was flying with an airline, and it was a very beautiful day. It was Durga Puja time in Kolkata. My base was Kolkata, and I was flying back to my station. So just before that, I had a layover in Guwahati, meaning I had stayed the previous night in Guwahati, and we were covering two sectors, Guwahati, Silchar, and then onwards to Kolkata. I was excited to be home because we had planned to go pandal hopping that evening. So told my parents to be ready. We'll just go out upon reaching. And as we were securing the cabin for landing, like what we usually do is like you ask the passengers to put on their seat belts, store their tray tables, keep the window shades open. The routine duties that we do just before a flight is about to land. And I had a glass of water in hand to offer to a passenger as well. And I was just walking past the aisle, and there was this tall gentleman who suddenly extended his leg in the aisle area, and the aircraft too took a turn. I just tripped and I fell. I fell on the left side. It was just a fall, but I lost consciousness briefly. And after that, for many hours, I was unable to speak. I had lost my speech, though I was able to feel everything, but I was not able to talk. So it just started from there, from that simple fall, which apparently did not have much visible injury. It was just pain and swelling to begin with. From there, gradually, it transformed into a couple of neurological disorders, namely CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, and fibromyalgia, among a few others, but these two are the most prominent ones that I've had. And it continues since then. Right.
So you mentioned two different diagnoses, right?
Yes.
CRPS and I'm not fibromyalgia.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me. So these are diagnoses I'm not sure many of us might be aware of. So I just have two follow-up questions to that. One would be for you to just take us through some of the symptoms that kind of come with both, and to also talk about the process of the diagnosis, because one of the most common challenges for people with an invisible or non-apparent impairment is the right diagnosis.
Yes.
And if you could share your experience on that, that would be helpful.
Yes. So most people who would be undergoing these neurological conditions would lose many years in the correct diagnosis. Similar thing happened with me as well. So it took me around 3 to 4 years to get the correct diagnosis, and something that I could relate to. I was diagnosed with several medical conditions. There were a lot of trials and errors, a lot of medications that were put on, because usually these conditions are diagnosed by exclusion, meaning you do not have a set parameter, a set diagnosis for these conditions. If you do not have this, then probably you might have this. So it started from there. And the line of treatment sometimes would be the same from when it started. Sometimes it would be much more deviant, right? So I was put on a lot of these anti-rheumatic drugs, a lot of different kinds of medications, which led to allergies. And even during the process also, a lot of steroids and everything was given. So it took a lot of regular diagnostic parameters and tests to come to a final diagnosis. And the next few years, I was treated on these lines, which seemed to have worked for me. So to take with the symptoms, what happens, there are a lot of symptoms which overlaps. So many people who would be having CRPS, I'm using the short form, those people go on to develop fibromyalgia, right? And it overlaps a lot. So few what do you call that? Symptoms would be pain has been a constant symptom, like from the time it started until now. So, and the pain which is very sharp in nature, I feel like it's a kind of a very severe electrical sensation which I feel on the left part of my body. Primarily, it started with my neck shoulder region and my back, but gradually it spread to other parts of my body, and I would keep on having pain throughout my body in all my body parts. So that is one of the hallmark feature, a pain that doesn't go away and which is disproportionate to the nature of the injury. So my nature of injury was, it was just a fall, right? And but the pain was much higher in comparison as any other healthy or a normal person would have. Of course, I also was absolutely healthy at that point in time because I was in a very physically and mentally demanding job. So fitness levels were, we had to keep optimum fitness levels. So then next comes fatigue. So the fatigue was so severe that there were times when I would talk and I would faint. I would not be able to talk constantly. Even now, I feel fatigue. So it's a journey. It's continuing, I would say, as I'm understanding my body. It's better over the years that I'm able to understand myself better. But the initial few years, the first 5-6 years, have been spent in this, why and how. Then a lot of cognitive issues. So a lot of forgetfulness, and your level of functioning changes completely. But it was gradual, mind you. It was just not that I fell and I happened like it. Being so that my mobility was severely impaired. No, it was initially, it was just pain, redness, and swelling. Then along with it, you get a lot of migraines and headaches. You undergo bladder pains, and the symptoms are very different for different people. You really cannot measure people in the same box, that anyone having the same two diagnosis as me would have the same symptoms. It could vary in nature. Then a few more would be a lot of sensitivities, like I had become extremely sensitive to touch, to smell, to light, sound. So, and a lot of digestive issues, mobility, balance issues, ringing in the ears. So these are a few symptoms that people with such conditions have in varying nature.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So not only is it a spectrum within the CNC umbrella, but for each condition also there are a range of symptoms that differ individual to individual.
Yes, it does.
And on a day-to-day basis,
yes,
for the same symptom, it could differ on a day-to-day basis.
So you'll have it's at a later part, which it's very much dynamic. It would fluctuate a lot.
Mhm.
Certain part of it would be constant, and a major part of it would fluctuate. So you need that much of more time to understand your body and work along with it. So it has both psychological and physiological repercussion. It affects you on both angles. Yes.
And one more thing that I picked up on when you were speaking, Manju, was although when we use the term diagnosis, it's often about the medical professional diagnosing you. But as I was listening to you speak, I also realized it's also about diagnosing or understanding what's happening to your own body better and just navigating that, which also I think comes under diagnosis, but is not spoken about as much, I think.
Yes, so it's a journey on its own, I would say, because one thing is that nothing is visible. Nothing shows up in the diagnostic test except your inflammatory parameters high. Like something says that something is going on in your body is fighting against it, but it cannot be pinpointed that what is it. Like if you have a fever, and yes, you do feel feverish a lot. I feel feverish a lot. There are many, what do you call, symptoms and attributes to it. So, if you have fever, okay, fine, this is it, and you have fever. But here, no, there's a range of symptoms, and you have to understand what exactly is happening. So that's the accept people around you. I have not seen anyone at that point in time who had such similar conditions that I could relate with, that I could understand, or maybe when we talk further, we could talk about this, because it plays a major role in a person's recovery and back to functionality. So here what happens is you understand, because you're never prepared for such things. You understand and you prepare yourself as you navigate this, in a way, uncharted territory, I would say. Because you suddenly feel that your body is not with you, it is not behaving the way it should, or you expect it to behave, or at the same time, you're just not getting better. Right. So, and there's nothing visible, like it would not show up, not on your MRIs or nothing. So there are no broken bones, there is no cut here, something that you could see and say, okay, like I'm improving or I'm not improving, or it's a wound which is not healing up. As if you're just fighting against a very invisible and unknown enemy. No, and now I would not call it an enemy, because you have to make peace with it. But yeah, that's how it was initially.
Of course, yeah. You've touched upon a lot of themes, Manju, which we will come back to as the discussion flows. But before I move on to the next set of questions, I just want to go back to saying something I missed saying while I was introducing the fireside chat, which is that while there are a certain set of questions that Manju and I will be having a conversation about, we intend to do this conversation until 5:45, post which it will be opened up for Q&A from the audience. So as we are speaking, if anybody who's listening in wants to ask a question or wants to share something, do have it on the chat, and we will try and take them as many as we can towards the end of the session. I actually missed calling that out. Coming back to what you were sharing, Manju. So one of the key aspects of this whole navigation of this uncharted territory, as we call it, one of the main people in that journey are the medical professionals. And as you mentioned, which is, I think, applicable to a lot of people with invisible or non-apparent impairments, is that a lot of time gets spent on understanding what is happening. And that is time that could have been spent on other things. Now, in your experience, you have had two aspects to this, I would say. One is you've been able to get medical attention from doctors individually who work in silo, as well as working with a team of doctors who work collectively. So what has your experience been of both, and if you could just shed some light on that for all of us.
So I would also want to say that I have been very fortunate and lucky that I have been under medical treatment right from the beginning, right from the time of the onset of this. So in that aspect, there was no time lost, meaning that, I got injured and then I'm going and visiting a doctor later. So that way, immediate attention was given. But the usual treatment, which is given for such kind of injuries, it was given and it was not getting better. So one doctor to another doctor, then another doctor, and different range of doctors, rheumatologists, orthopedics, neurologists. So it started with that, and we lost a lot of time before we got the correct diagnosis. So those many years now, when I look back, those many years could have been utilized in my recovery, in regaining functionality, or at the same time, not letting this condition aggravate this much. It could have been restored or stopped or addressed at a much earlier phase. Because by the time the treatment in this regard started, we had already spent a lot of time. Also, I feel in such condition, working as a team definitely helps a lot, because that is where my improvement in a way started. Because by the time I reached them, I was just exhausted and fed up to a point that what actually is wrong. We were not able to understand why is this not getting better. And day by day, gradually, my situation was deteriorating instead of getting better. When we did get a team approach to it, it was in a physical medicine and rehabilitation setting. So usually these clinics work like this, wherein, and I got this at CMC Vellore, which is one of the premier institution. And, it was a reward in Bengal, like people having any kind of a medical thing, even just for a consultation also would want to go there. And I have experienced it firsthand. So there you will have a pain specialist who would work on it. We call their physiatrist who would be working on you. You'll have a occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, a psychiatrist, psychologist. Then would seek opinion from rheumatologist, neurologist, orthopedic. So it's not that they're excluding an area, but at the same time they are working in tandem. You are getting an all-round approach, like not a single part of it is getting excluded, which is very, very important. And there the role, what I felt the difference is not really on getting back to how I was, when I acquired the injury years ago. It was more on whatever is the present situation is getting more functional, getting more active, and improving the quality of life. It starts from there. And this did have an effect on me because there was a point in time, and for around a year, I was completely bedridden. I mean, to a point where I was dependent on my caregivers, primarily my mother and my sister, who were taking care of all my needs, right? Everything, my daily functional needs. So that does take a beating in the sense that from a very highly active, independent life, the kind of the lifestyle I was leading when the injury happened, to a point where I'm completely in bed, that does take a lot of psychological impact on you. I went through major depressive disorders. I was in major depression at a time, and I just didn't know what next. There was no hope. So herein, this thing of mental health, because it gets impacted severely in any chronic situation that you have. It played a huge role because there, slowly and gradually, I could see hope. That's a different thing, whether you agree with the doctor or not. There are a lot of times when you agree to disagree, but you have a space where you can actually agree to disagree, right? It took me a long time to reach there, which could have been utilized earlier, the time, and I could have been functional much earlier. So in such cases, yes, team approach definitely works. And I think this is the ideal way of working on it. People who have knowledge of pain, people who have knowledge of treating the patients who come with such complaints. Because for me also, it has been a journey in the sense when I fell down, it was just this. But later, my mobility got impacted. I was completely in the bed. There were a lot of things. My speech got impacted. So what happened is, and there's a speech specialist also who works with you, right? So I would say I had learned again to walk because I didn't have balance. I've learned again to walk. I've learned again to speak. So, during my childhood, I may not have remembered what my parents or, like how I would have grown up, very faint memories. But yes, in the second birth, I would say, yes, I remember a lot of it.
Right. And just what it takes to be functional again.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the team approach sounds holistic, not only because of the range of medical professionals, but also because of the focus on physical and mental health, which you very rightly said plays such a key role in the journey post-injury and also towards accepting, the changes that are now in one's life.
Also, what happens here, occupational therapy is not spoken about or not given that much of importance, but I feel it's very important in your daily functioning. Physiotherapy aims at, how your body is functioning. Occupational therapy is aimed at how you become more functional with those body parts. So, for example, putting on my dress, what is a different way in which I can do it, or eating, holding a spoon. So those played a very important role because that slowly gave me a sense of, yes, I'm getting back to life. Yes, I'm getting back to functionality, right? Which was missing earlier because I would be seen by individual doctors, and that was just one line of thing. Yeah, physiotherapy would be there. I have been from under the physiotherapy since the injury, and in some sense until now, right? But the team approach, the kind of effect it has on you in your recovery, it is irrepressible, I will say. And also doctors who deals with sports medicines, the psychiatrist. These are the doctors who work with you, because later I could relate. We have a lot of sports person who goes through so much of injuries, and many of these injuries are muscular in nature. Means you'll have pain in your uh, uh, deep muscles and all. So people do recover. So they are the people who know, but these specialities are not given that much of adequate importance as of now, from what I had seen in my own personal experience.
Yeah. Talking about the team approach that you've been sharing, Manju, and just the whole rehabilitation phase, there's a flight going, so we just wait for that. Shall I go ahead? All right. So when we talk about this whole rehabilitation phase, it's really all about taking it not just one day at a time, but also one step at a time. All right. And I think what can help aid that journey even more is the support system or the people that we surround ourselves with. So my next question to you would be about that support system in terms of, in addition to the medical professionals, who else was there around you in that phase, and the role and the impact that they've had on you, during that time.
Again, I feel I have been extremely fortunate and privileged to have such supportive people around me. Whether it was the organization that I used to work for right at the beginning, that I got that medical attention that was required, to my family members, my immediate family members, to also, when we talk about this, the whole focus was on me in a way, but you can empathize as much only with the family members, with my parents, what they have gone through. So when I was to the previous question, when we are talking about this team approach, there, it's just not me. They take along your caregivers or your family along with you in your recovery process, because it's very important because they give everything to you. That is what when I was referring to when I spoke about my second birth in a way, because I've seen how my parents have cared for me. It is only because of their consistent support that I have reached this far, and which continues to be there with me. I'm very, very fortunate in that sense, because not many people will have this kind of a family support. Also in the process, what happens is we lived in a joint family. So there were a lot of adjustments to be made, because everyone would be busy with their own lives. They have their own, there's a daily routine to a lot of things, and this became chronic in nature. So it was just not one visit to the doctor, 2 visits. It kept on continuing. It continues even until now. So what happens is, if you do not have a supportive family, a support system, it's very difficult for you to function and to reach at a point where you're completely functional, or where you are able to ask for support also. A point comes wherein you just feel you're a burden to the family. I did go through those phases. So yes, my family, very supportive friends, like with whom I could just be myself, who accepted me as a human with my own set of flaws and my specialities, with whom I could vent out, and who have just been unconditionally supportive. Because in my group, we have not come across anyone who had such similar things. Now I feel if I get to know someone, it might be a little easier. But when it happened, I think it happens with most of us, like we were saying, like we are never prepared for it. So at that stage, it's just that support, the mutual support which you offer to each other, the building of hope, and looking forward to tomorrow. And yes, it's just one step at a time. I would even say, moments at times. I would not even go till there, because you do go through such ups and downs. And again, I was very fortunate to have, excellent mentors. I happened to cross paths with people who played a very integral role in leading me to where I am today. One among them is my former mentor and reporting manager, Mr. Atul Ranjan Sahai. So I met him during my time at the airport in Kolkata while I was a ground staff. He's a blind gentleman who used to work with Tatas. And, when I was like, I did have some thoughts, but I lacked direction. I did not know where to go, what to do, what next, because it was just a continuous rut of medical things, home, medical and home. It's just like that. And that's when he kind of stepped in, and he being a very successful person and a role model in his own right, influenced me greatly, whether it is building on hope, showing me a direction. So that's what I feel, when people say that you really never know when you can make someone's day or when you could be a guiding light in someone's life. I feel it's absolutely true because it happened with me, because that was the time when I really required it. I needed it. Maybe a time I was at the cusp of it when my life could have gone either ways. And I feel I got the correct guidance from him. And he kind of showed where can I go next, what is it that I can do next, and that's how I'm here. Because then I didn't even kind of really think that I would one day be working in the development space, or that was I didn't even know whether I'll get a job at that point in time. Then I did a social leadership course from Kantari, which again played a very huge role in where I am. Of course, Atul sir only guided me to applying there. And that boosted my confidence because he said, whatever ideas you have in mind, just put it on paper. And when I did that, I got selected and I completed the course. But there were many times during the course, it's a 7-month course, and I had to stay away from home. That staying away from home at that point in time, again, I feel have played a huge role in a way in my rehabilitation, in getting my confidence back. And, in kind of believing in my dreams or believing in what I can do next. So Kantari is in Trivandrum. It's an excellent institute that grooms, social leaders. And I happened to meet very influential and empowering people there, Sabria and Paul, who are the founders there. They have had a huge impact on me. There I was, again, away from home on my own for 7 months and more. And that confidence that I got while I was traveling, while I was there during my stay, somewhere it played a very, a role in getting back a sense of self. And I happen to be in a very dynamic and a cosmopolitan environment. We were 24 participants from 12 countries. So it was, again, I could, because in my job, in my previous job, that is what I would be doing, meeting people, talking, and, from meeting people across the globe. And again, I was there. So it was a very different feeling, a very enabling and a very, a very special feeling, I would say. It not being an institute for this, but it did play that kind of a role. It was extremely, as I look back, Kantari has played a huge role. And I thought of opening my own organization. And then I realized that no, it's not working out. It requires much more efforts and financial commitment. And I felt, okay, let me give it some time and I can always come back to it later. And my mentors were still there, supporting me. I'm happy that I'm still working in the space that I had wanted to later, because that was what my project was all about. And then I got engaged with Enable India. I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better runway to take off, as I would say, because I happened to land in such a wonderful organization, which I am still continuing to do it. It's such a happy space. People trust you so much, because I was thinking, who would give me a job? Even then, even when I thought I would be running my own organization, it was featured around it. But there was a reason why I couldn't go ahead with it. And that's where Enable India stepped in, the amount of trust that they show in the people. Our founders, Shanti Raghavan and Dipesh Sataria, the way I met Dipesh sir when he and Pranesh sir interviewed me, and we had Captain Amita from Tata Steel as well at that time. So it was more on your capabilities. I was barely able to speak that day. So, you're among people who understand you, they're able to see the potential that you carry. It may not be that you're not able to show it at that point in time, which is very much possible, because I have a neurological condition which is fluctuating in nature. Like if I'm not able to speak very clearly at that point in time, it doesn't mean that I'm not capable of anything. And that's how it started. So I would say my family, my friends, the organization that I work for, the organization that I was associated with, my mentors, they have played a huge people from whom I get to learn a lot. I can be myself, so yes. Apart from the medical professionals who definitely have played a very important role. And technology, I think we'll definitely come to it, I think. It was a source of information because there was not much information available. So it was that source of information that made me believe no such things exist, right? When there was so much of disbelief all around.
It's indeed very heartening to know that you were around people or you came across your paths, crossed with people who really helped push the envelope for and with you. And since you yourself touched upon the technology aspect, maybe you could, speak a little bit about that also in terms of how that helped expand your horizon as well as your social circle.
Yes, so it was like I was just at home, amidst the four walls in a way, wherein my mobility was severely impacted, and I wasn't getting much information about the medical condition that I had. I wanted to know more, and it was then that internet kind of helped a lot more, wherein I could connect with people. I could join, information groups from where I could relate with people that yes, it's the same condition that other people also have, because I couldn't come across people who had the same set of conditions, right? And there was a lot of disbelief around because there are doctors who just don't believe you. They kind of tell you that it's all in your brain, it's all in your head. These things do not exist. So from there, coming to a position that no, these things do exist, it does have a scientific background, research is still on. And there are many more people who have this. I mean, as I read about it, fibromyalgia came as a very common symptom. It's a very common medical condition. CRPS is a rare one, but I mean, even though it's very common, I didn't come across anyone. So either it's not there in the open, or people do not talk about it as much. So their internet played in seeking information, in connecting with people, and then in widening my social circle, as you say, in being connected with friends, because I had completely retreated into a shell, right? So there, it really, these video calls, these phone calls, having access to internet, having material to read, keeping yourself occupied, this definitely played a huge role.
Coming back to the theme of the fireside chat, which is beyond the obvious, the reason this chat is called that is because we're talking about something which is not always apparent or visible. There are some symptoms that are invisible or that are not apparent. So my next question to you, Manju, would be about some of the barriers that you may have faced as someone having an invisible disability, and what are some of the solutions that you use in your personal and professional life, keeping all of these symptoms in mind?
Challenges per se have been kind of, the first thing is a very judgmental thing, because I have been through a spectrum wherein from a point of no mobility at all to a point when I'm able to walk short distance. So, and even when I was in that state, it was like one day I'm able to do better, other day I'm not. So there was a lot of disbelief, when people would think, no, how can someone have so many things, so many symptoms? You must be faking it to a point that you're actually faking it, or you require favoritism. This is something which I think most people with non-apparent disabilities go through. Right? People just don't believe you that you require this. These are your requirements, and your body and mind functions in this particular way. It's actual. So that was one, because even medical professionals do not believe. So, I mean, talking about common nurses and someone whom we have not seen. So now my parents have seen this in me. I've seen it myself. So now I'm able to relate better when someone else says that they go through this, because I've read up, I myself am living it. But it may have happened that, if I were not exposed to this, perhaps I also would not have believed. I might have been very judgmental. So that is there. Plus, I was in a very glamorous industry, before. And suddenly, things of grooming becomes the things of past. Or when you do groom up, people again become very, very judgmental. They think like if you have something, they see you with a very constricted lens, that you cannot dress up, you cannot groom. People become very, very judgmental. So I've had instances when I'm hospitalized, and one of the nurses just come up and she comments that my friend had very lovingly put a red nail polish, and I could hear the nurse actually saying that she is unable to walk, but she has put on a red nail polish. It's very trivial. We don't see any connection, but it gives a lot of food for thought about how we think. How is a society who do not have exposure to such things, and in the light how we see people with disabilities. We do not see them with any aspiration or hopes or any desires. So that was there. Suddenly, you do not remain a marriage material. That again comes up. You again, I mean, woman and a disability is a deadly combination of marginalization. So that kind of happens, where people see you with a very, very different lens, right? Coming to solutions, I would say the first solution, I would say, self-advocacy, which I learned and picked up a great deal by being here at Enable India. Because you need to be comfortable in your own skin. You need to be able to share and tell what you need. You need to, I would say, include and integrate yourself, because you cannot just wait for the other person to understand. You have to let them know. You need to integrate yourself. So what are my requirements is I would be able to say the best. And when such ownership comes in you, you're able to be vocal about it. You're able to understand the other person as well, because you may not be in a situation to have it all the time. That's very human and a lot situational as well. That is one. In terms of gadgets, I would say, of course, a motorized wheelchair. The sense of freedom that it gives, I literally say that, I was flying in aircrafts earlier. I fly on my wheelchair now, because before that, I would need someone to wheel myself. And I kind of found out a way. I mean, people with chronic neurological disorders would have a lot of shortcuts. I had a lot of shortcuts for myself as well, so that my energy is restored and I can maintain it. I would wheel myself backwards if I have to wheel. I could wheel very short distance. I would require assistance. So if I'm on a manual wheelchair, someone will have to wheel me. But the first time I used a motorized wheelchair was while I was at Subway in Normandy. The roads were wonderful. And the sense of freedom that it gave me is something I really cannot explain.
Sorry, Manju.
Yes.
Which place did you mention?
It was Normandy in Jharkhand. So why I mentioned that is sometimes we have these things that only metros can have it. But yeah, it's about how people maintain things, right, irrespective of the location you're in. So then I would use a rollator as well, which is essentially a walker on wheels, because now my balance is better. I would also use a walking cane when my mobility is better. I'm able to walk with a cane, sometimes without a cane as well. Then I use hearing plugs, because I'm still sensitive to sound. I use dark glasses because I'm sensitive to light. And there are times when I just cannot be allied at all. I would carry my own cutlery most of the times because I'm more comfortable and the weight comes across as better. A lot of solutions which are available in technology, as we say, the features of night light, high contrast, having a larger cursor and mouse, those all things, predictive text, the touch screen, and speech to text. There are times when it's very exhausted to write. So, but if I'm able to speak better, I use that. So I use all these things. Now I've started thinking of everything as a solution, as much as a 3-pin plug, because if something is put inside a PowerPoint plug and I'm unable to take it out, so I use a 3-pin plug or multi-plug point, which allows me a space to hold it and pull it out. And yes, I ask for help or support whenever I require it. So even I use that as a solution as well. So yes, these are a few among the many things that I use.
Thank you for sharing, Manju. Keeping the time in mind, although there are a couple more things that we did intend to discuss, I'll just want to understand if we have any questions from the audience, if anybody has put anything on the chat, or if there is something that we can address.
Yes, thank you, Gayatri and Manju. This is Kavya here. So just sharing a couple of questions that was posted on the Q&A section. One is having a normal lifestyle to suddenly getting into chronic health issue. How did it feel mentally and emotionally? Did people around you understand what you were going through? How was the support at home and also at workplace?
So yes, it did take a hit, right? And that is where mental health comes in. That is where psychiatric help and counseling comes in. I wasn't very vocal about it initially. I was not expressing it, braving it as if it's all okay. I could do that for a long time until I just collapsed, because apart from the medical thing, there was a lot much happening in my life, professionally, personally, emotionally. So there was a time when I did collapse, and then I started sharing more to my family members, and this team approach that we spoke about earlier did have a huge bearing on me and my parents, to say, because they and another uncle of mine who would accompany me for most of my these medical travel and stays, right? So going through psychotherapy, having endless counseling sessions, I would say, it did play a huge role in being where I am today, in acceptance, because that took the longest time. I think when I accepted what I have was actually the time when I started making progress. Before that, I think I had not made much progress, or I didn't see much hope for myself. So it was, and acceptance does take a long time, long time, especially when you're not able to see anything, especially which comes across as so uncommon. So here I put a lot of impetus on mental health. Anyways, it's a very important topic of discussion and of following for all of us. But in such chronic things where your life just overturns, right? It plays a huge role, because I feel if there's a very strong interconnect between mind and body, you really cannot separate them, I would say. Your mind influences your body influences your mind, but somewhere the mind wins, because it can really push your body, that's where it comes. But the body really cannot push the mind, I would say, in a way. That is what I feel.
Thanks, Manju. I think I'll club 2 more questions. So one is, how many years it took to get you to recover for this level? And second one being, how many years treatment went and onto which level? Would like to answer that.
So it took me roughly about 7 years to reach the level where I was functional, where I could think that yes, I can manage on my own, in the sense I'm vocal about, with the support system around me. With regards to the treatment, it's continuing even now, because usually for people with the chronic conditions, the treatment continues, in a way to say, lifelong. So treatment continues even now, but yes, my visits have lessened, but I do have to continue with my treatment.
Thanks, Manju. I think there was another question saying, does the social life get affected? I think you've already answered that. So moving on to the next question, who was your greatest motivation?
Okay, so it has come in spurts, I would say. Greatest motivation has been my parents, because seeing them put everything into you, so that you get back on your feet, so that you get back to your life, is something which is irreplaceable. I would say that, because, looking at them, looking at the efforts that they would put in, you would want to do much more. My parents and an uncle of mine who has been a father figure to me. So the greatest motivation was that. And later, as and when, I was mentioning the people who had influenced me, who have been my mentors, gradually it so happened that, they started influencing me greatly. They have had a huge role to play. But greatest motivators to begin with, yes, my parents. And then thereafter, it was Atul sir, Sabriya Paul. Here we have Shanti ma'am and Dipesh sir. Because they when I look back to where I am, I've seen they have played very huge key roles. In terms of me even talking of everything as a solution here in self-advocacy, I mean, everyone has played a huge role in me, in where I am. And the ecosystem, I would say, of course, it's not a motivation, I would say, but the role that it has played, for that matter, nature has played a very therapeutic role, because to most of these centers that I've been to, these were very green, and nature did play a huge role. It wasn't actually a motivation, but somewhere I felt connected.
Thanks, Manju. The next question is, from your point of view, what are some of the changes the company needs to do such situations to support, be it communication, expectations, review, discussions? How do we go about that?
So we did have a discussion point on this, and maybe we can keep it together. So we feel, there have been a lot of talks about it, but absolute non-judgmental, open, safe, and comfortable spaces for people to talk about, because essentially these are very much invisible. If I do not use a wheelchair or any other assistive device which is very much visible, people would not know that I go such a range in fluctuating manner, right? So if I have a space where I can talk about this, where I'm offered support, I think many people will come out. Even data says that 1 in 3 person goes through some kind of a neurological condition in their lifetime. So it's huge, right? So I feel the first place is that, because, and if we have such inclusion policies and processes, which are very much implementable, just not on papers, but in which you can implement, because this directly somewhere relates to job security. This directly relates to somewhere to confidentiality, because when someone is opening up and is not comfortable to share it with others, you would want to have that right, which can form a part of your with the visible or invisible disabilities. I guess it is for your workforce, it is for everyone, it helps everyone, it supports everyone. So, and if you have a lot of these dialogues and discourses, a lot of awareness sessions, a lot of talks around disability, around medical conditions which are not very apparent, but that affects your functionality, because at the end of the day, it's productivity and efficiency, right? That's what an organization wants from its employees, which cannot be achieved without their well-being. Correct. And if I'm in such safe and happy spaces, I would be able to deliver my best. Because when we talk about offering accommodations or solutions, not everything works for everyone. And the person who is living with it would be the best person to talk about it, or would be able to say that what is it that I require. And so that a person can reach to that level, I think these are very much important.
Thanks, Manju. So there are a couple of more questions, I think. So I'll just choose one or two and you can answer that. So one is, did anyone suggest things like nazar lage hogi kiski, or there must thereby suggest other methods of treatment? How difficult was it to stay true to medical profession for getting treatment and results?
So thank you for this, because I missed this while I was talking about the rehabilitation and medical process. So I went through a lot of religious, spiritual healing as well, like quack doctors, or, yes, there was a lot of it. And a lot of it coming to my parents as well, because my younger sister is deaf since birth. I acquired a disability, and it was like, either we being sinners or they being sinners, and that's what we are going through this. There is a lot of temples that work on your mental health, or wherein you go and you're just cured of it. So yes, the shift was very difficult. I did go through that process. I would not say that I do not go through it even now. There are times when my parents would come and say, they suggested this. Just a few days back, there was a show on orthopedic doctor on television. I am not refuting any. I would not say that if something works for someone without damaging anything else, fair enough. I wouldn't even say that I have not seen people recover, but I really do not know how they have recovered, but I do use my logic. I do use my education as a background, and I do understand their emotions as well, because if they see that someone has recovered, they would also want me to go through that process, that, yeah, you never know, you just might recover completely. So it's a balance, I would say. I did go through this, but I think now we have come to a level of understanding wherein they don't force me that much, and I'm also able to assert myself a little more and show some sense to them as well.
Thanks, Manju. So I think we'll just take the last question, keeping the time in mind. So the question is, how does Manju manage in meeting and discussion having different stakeholders, since she has sensitivity for noise? And I would also want to club another question is, what is the additional tools or aids can make fully independent to Manju, apart from solutions already being used?
Okay. So just for today, this is not my actual voice. I'm fatigued, but because I'm with a wonderful organization and a wonderful team of people, they have just put me at comfort, that speak at your pace, talk with the voice that you have. As you might be seeing, I'm just keeping the speaker on my lap. So Gayatri is having to maybe talk a little louder so that, her voice reaches here and it's closer to me. So the people around you makes a lot of difference. And of course, you have to be innovative and always think of solutions. With in meetings and all, yes, I'm vocal. But there are times when I'm just taken off guard. There are times when I would want to adjust. When it doesn't work out, then I would speak out. I would use chat. I would write if I'm not able to speak. Or for sensory issues, like I would put on my glasses, or I will ask people to switch off the light if it is possible. So there are things which I would try myself, and then I would be vocal about it, asking the other people that you should not cause inconvenience to me and to them as well, because otherwise I will not be able to participate better. And the team also would not be able to get the best out of me, or the purpose of that particular meeting or the setting would be defeated. So I would say we work together on solutions, few myself and few along with the people that I am working with at that point in time.
Thank you, Manju. I think we can close the Q&A for today, keeping the time in mind. Yes, over to Gayatri.
Thank you, Kavya. Very heartening to know the range of questions
Yes.
that have been coming in through the session. So a big thank you to all those who sent it in. And we are sorry we couldn't answer all the questions as well. Sorry about that. It's just keeping the time in mind.
May I include something? While we were talking about solutions, there are a lot of medical things which I use, Kavya, which I missed out while I was talking. So, which gives me comfort, flexible work timings, which really are a savior for me. So when we are talking about this, I only covered a half of it when I'm talking because I'm mispointing this out. But yeah, there also, which gives comfort to my body and allows space for my mind to think. And what do you say? Provisions which are allowed by our organization.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So just to conclude today's fireside chat, firstly, Manju, thank you so much for being so candid and for sharing your journey with us, because we've been able to cover a lot of various themes, in the conversation. And just want to say that in a post-COVID world where long COVID is still very much the reality, the collective understanding of what people can go through without anybody external knowing is very much there. So I think we are getting a little bit better at understanding what an invisible or non-apparent condition is, be it temporary or chronic. But we're still scratching the surface. And a conversation like this and you shedding light on a lot of the questions that we had is helping us to go beyond the obvious. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, I would say that I had this platform, I had the opportunity and the space, to share this because somewhere it's very cathartic to the person. Also, the more I share, the more understanding and acceptance builds in. And at the same time, as you rightly mentioned, COVID-19 in a way has been an eye-opener because a lot of research and things are happening on such invisible and neurological conditions. So, there is definitely light. There are much more better things that we are looking forward to.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manju. Thank you to the team that helped set up the call, our tech team also who gave us all the support, our interpretation support inclusion champions, Saurav and Dr. Renu, thank you so much. And to all those who took the time out to attend the conversation today, thank you so much for joining in and wishing everybody a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thanks.